the kindness of strangers. So this topic can be discussed under the GS2 topic, that is governance. So in that, one of the most important component is how we can make public as an important stakeholder. This article highlights the important role played by civil society and suggests the need for creating a framework wherein you can actually look at this civil society as a tool for arriving at the solution of problems in our society. In this context, we have to realize that the present COVID crisis is a glaring showcase of the failure of governments and governance systems when there is no cooperation from the public or civil society. We have to realize that privatization is not the answer for governance in our country, because private citizens will not be in a position to provide for the needs of the citizens across the country. So there is a need for effective social interactions, according to the writer. So what do you mean by the social interactions? Basically, this is about how a community participates and plays an important role in scaling up some of the actions that have been found useful. So best practices in a particular community must be replicated across the country. This requires active engagement. What do you mean by this active engagement? Basically, whenever a decision is taken by the government, if the public decided not to cooperate in a situation of a lockdown, lockdowns would not be successful. We have to understand that public would cooperate with us when they realize that the government is acting in their best interest. So decentralization of power actually happens when people actually feel that they are empowered or they have a say in decisions. So this empowered group of secretaries that the government recently created to understand how we can actively engage with the civil society is an important step in this framework. So for this, there is a need for a Niti Aayog recommended framework. So for this, the author suggests that Niti Aayog should engage government institutions. Till now, generally, the perception about government institutions is that it is completely out of reach for public as far as policy matters are concerned. They can only visit government institutions with a hope for grievance redressal, but not active public participation while they are making any new policies. So this requires a paradigm shift. Now public must be made partners even in crisis management also. When public are also looked at as a resource to tap in times of crisis, we can achieve a lot of things. If we take a look at the sustainable development goals that Niti Aayog is actually entrusted with as a responsibility for involving the communities, it will achieve a dual objective of one, on one hand, we will be reaching the targets of SDG goals by 2030, and on the other hand, obviously, for this to happen, the governance delivery will become much more efficient. This happens with participation of the public. So this article writer suggests that we have to leverage advanced technologies, and he gives an acronym ABCD. A stands for artificial intelligence, B stands for blockchain, and C is for cloud computing, D is for data analytics. So whenever there is a demand and a supply, often there is a demand supply mismatch. This mismatch can be understood and closed by using these ABCD technologies. So the article writer suggests that we create a framework based on these technologies, and this institutional framework must be actually applied across all the sectors to bridge this demand supply gap. To simplify things, or to sum up the article, what this article writer is saying is Niti Aayog should come up with a framework where, if for example the government services are somewhere at this level and the demand is somewhere at this level, in order to bridge the gap that is existing between the demand and the actual supply from the government, this gap can be filled by civil society, and at the same time using this ABCD technologies. We have discussed what these are: artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, and data analytics. Why is Niti Aayog so important? Now we are talking about tapping the civil society here. What is that organization which maintains a database of all these civil society organizations? That database is Darpan portal, which is held by Niti Aayog. Therefore, the article writer suggests that we have to tap into the resources of Niti Aayog, create a framework which is very much in tandem with its objective of being a think tank to better utilize the resources that the government has at its disposal. So that is the gist of this article, which can be encapsulated with this small flowchart or informatic diagram. India's path to Cornwall Consensus goes via China. This article is about the recent developments with respect to the intergovernmental organization called G7. Now, what is the kind of influence that the Cornwall Consensus or the outcome of the latest meeting of this organization called G7 is all about, and how it will impact our country is the focus of this article. How it is reliant upon China despite the fact that it is trying to counter in China. So this is the focus of the article. Basically, this G7 is actually a group of 7 countries. Previously, they were very wealthy democracies, and these countries had certain common interests. They include 7 countries, that is Japan, United States, then you have Italy, then there is France, Germany, UK, and Canada. So Japan, US, UK, Canada, Germany, France, and Italy, these 7 countries, they used to meet occasionally and discuss the values that they should propound to the rest of the world. These G7 countries represent 58% of the global net wealth, and they have nearly 46% of the GDP of the world. So these are based on nominal values. So the takeaway is that they have a considerable weightage in global economics. What is the situation under which we are discussing this topic? So the organization has actually been a informal one, and the purpose with which it was created was to avoid any financial crisis. Now, when the world is in a financial crisis, this topic is again back in news. Actually, G7 was expanded to G20 after the global financial crisis in 2008. But again, the G7 is back in news because of certain important factors like China trying to dominate some other countries in G20. The rapid rise of China, deepening divisions between the West as well as China, the kind of chaotic response in the West to the COVID pandemic has brought significance to this organization once again. So the summit happens at a place called Cornwall. So the outcome of that Cornwall is the Cornwall Consensus. Firstly, before this Cornwall Consensus, there was something called the Washington Consensus. So this Washington Consensus was actually a free market advocate and believed in a laissez-faire neoliberalistic notion where you can actually push countries out of poverty by allowing the markets to flourish, and there is a minimalistic state in such kind of a setup. But breaking away from the neoliberalism notion that pushed states in the direction where markets leads or steps only when there is a market failure, the world wants to move towards a economic framework where there is equity for all kinds of problems, even to the developing world. That is the backdrop of Cornwall Consensus. In the recent summit at the G7, the organization, together with the intergovernmental heads, termed China as a security threat. So this is the first such explicit admission by the West uh, about its perception towards China. The problem lies in China's tight commercial grip over India. If we actually have to align with the objectives that were laid down in this Cornwall consensus. So basically, this consensus is nothing but a few terms on which the G7 leadership would take the economic agenda forward post pandemic. So it included some climate finance, and then there were promises about vaccines to the developing world and the underdeveloped world, and certain other economic incentives to develop strategic partnerships. So these terms fall short of what is needed right now for India to actually de-link its economy from China. China has been amongst highest trading partners for some years now for us, and in fact China is likely to be the top trade partner for us even in this year. So if you take a look at US, we only trade 80.5 billion USD, but with China, despite the tensions being at an all-time high, our trade value is nearly 86.4 billion USD. So we are talking about terms like Atmanirbharta or self-reliance, and yet depending on China. This is not a political rhetoric, it is an economic imperative. We don't have any other option because our supply chains are so closely linked to China. Clearly, there is some divergence between our rhetoric when it comes to security issues. That is, we are actually countering China through issues like Quad, and recently there have been talks and debates about whether India should actually join NATO, but that does not reflect our reality on the terms of trade. So overall, what we can say is, if India has to actually walk down this path of Cornwall consensus, we have to first walk through the path that we have already taken, that is through China, and de-link our economy with China. In the short term, this looks very difficult. So diversifying our supply chains is the first step that we have to take towards our disengagement with China. That is the gist of this article.